Welcome to a Monday Night Football edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. It's been a busy Monday as we have some news. Obviously, we have Gus Malzahn retiring, Tim Harris Jr. elevating to offensive coordinator. He was co-offensive coordinator and receivers coach. And Mike Norvell is now going to be the play caller for Florida State in 2026. So lots to discuss. We'll unpack that here. Osceola publisher Jerry Kutz, editor Bob Ferrante. Jerry, interesting timing. Definitely raised an eyebrow when I got that email this morning and started looking into it, making some phone calls and trying to get some more information. But your first thoughts were what?
Well, my first thought was the timing is awfully curious. And being around the sport of college football for as long as I have, you obviously you're cynical about the timing of it. I mean, is this something that Gus knew he was going to do at the end of the season, but they waited until after the portal was over to announce it, which is not uncommon in this industry for these announcements to be made after signing days. But, Bob, the other side of me immediately thought we knew that Gus was struggling with some family health issues. And I think all of us, after having gone through this transfer portal and all the chaos in college football, I think each of us have had days where we thought, well, I'd like to quit this. This isn't what I signed up for, right?
It's exhausting. It's exhausting.
It's just exhausting. And it's not the game that, I think guys Gus's age signed in for. And so maybe it was just he had good intentions of, staying offensive coordinator for the foreseeable future, and then just got second thoughts about it and made the announcement before they got into the heat of spring practice. There's a relationship there with Mike. And, if he is to serve him, he's got to be honest with him and say, I just don't think I got the gas in the tank to do this. This isn't what I dreamed of doing when I was first got into coaching. And so I think all of us have kind of had that. I know I have at times. The transfer portal, the chaos of college sports it's a lot. And maybe that the last cycle, he had to come to grips with that. And therefore,
and I think if Florida State were up Arkansas, if Florida State were closer to home, maybe where he could see his mom more often, is this a different discussion for Gus Malzahn? He had to leave one Sunday after practice to go up to go see his mom, and Monday being an off day for the team, he missed that off day and then was back for the Tuesday morning practice. So he didn't truly miss anything, but clearly home is where his heart, maybe his mind was at times. And if you could shrink that distance between Tallahassee and back home, maybe this is a different discussion right now.
Right. So, the timing was the first thing I found, that's what popped into my head. And I've talked to a couple of people in athletics, and they were actually surprised when it happened. So to me, the fact they were surprised maybe is an indicator that it wasn't planned this way, that it was, in fact, a decision that evolved. And so the other thing too, Bob, I think you and I talked about it earlier today, is that, Gus brought a number of people in most recent months, onto the staff. And that's not what a guy would do, I think, if he knew he wasn't going to be returning in the fall. And so,
agree. Cam Martin coming from Tulsa was an Auburn guy. They've got some I won't call them GA or analyst types, but they brought in a number of guys with Auburn connections to Gus. So yes, that reinforces that Mike Norvell was looking for good people, and Gus Malzahn suggested some good people who he knew to bring into these roles.
Yeah. And now we start talking about offensive coordinator role. I've heard good things about Harris, and they had already promoted him to co-coordinator, offensive game coordinator, and so there's some logic to that and some continuity to that. Gus leaves, but if Herb Hand is still here, and Harris and Chris Thompson, of course, has the roots with Mike. It seems like the continuity would still be there without Gus. So big mystery.
Well, I kind of dug into Tim Harris's background a little bit. I think you brought up a good point too, that there is continuity. Herb Hand is sticking around as the offensive line coach. Tim Harris has coached wide receivers, but also running backs at multiple schools. He's been at programs that want to run the football. He's coached with Mario Cristobal. If you talk about alignment, we've talked about alignment a lot these past few years in a big picture athletic sense, but also a college football program culture and coaching sense. Tim Harris Jr. has led successful running back rooms on teams that run very well. That seems to mesh with the Gus Malzahn philosophy. That seems to mesh with the Mike Norvell philosophy. So as far as looking down the hall to make a hire, and let's be honest, if you're looking to make a hire on February 1st, or even a few days at the end of January, or a few more days down the road, you're not going to find great offensive coordinator candidates who are willing to leave what job they're at to potentially come to Florida State for a job that is 1 year. This is an interesting decision to make, but maybe the right guy was in-house in Tim Harris Jr., just from a philosophical standpoint.
Right. Well, and Tim had been with Mike at UCF as well. So, he understands the offense that they began installing last year. And so it'll be interesting to see how how it'll differ, or is that offense more Tim Harris than we realize?
I think that's the curiosity is, how much does Mike Norvell change the scheme? Does he go back to what worked for him at Arizona State? Does he go into a little bit of his days? Does he blend in some of what Gus brought in this last year? Is the playbook a jambalaya, so to speak? It is a mix of various things. And I think, and you've recruited players, especially at quarterback, that think they're going to play for Gus Malzahn until that was announced this morning. So you have quarterbacks who are kind of thinking about, how do I fit? Does a scheme adapt at all? Is it pretty similar? To be determined, I think, for a lot of our main questions. But I think if you're a quarterback, you're obviously very curious what it looks like these next few weeks leading up to the start of spring ball.
Now, let's go back on that. Kevin Sperry, was Kevin a Gus Malzahn recruit, or had he already committed before Malzahn was announced? What's the timeline on that? Do you have a clear memory?
Kevin Sperry kind of came out of nowhere early November of 24. And yeah, we didn't think he was on the radar for Florida State, right? Tramell Jones was going to be that guy for Florida State. And then he wasn't that guy. And that relationship kind of fell apart with Tramell going down to Florida. I think Gus was very much in the picture later into November, with Mike Norvell saying, hey, I need to know, what do you think? So I have the belief that from the Kevin Sperry discussion, he might be happier with Mike Norvell, not just as head coach, but as play caller. This might be a scheme or playbook that fits Kevin quite well. We'll have to see how that unfolds this spring too.
Right. because Kevin had originally committed to Oklahoma, as I recall, and then flipped, right?
Correct.
So, yeah, it's going to be curious. You just wrote the depth chart for the offense, and with the volatility of the transfer portal, a fair number of the guys that are on the roster for offense have come in the past 2 years.
Yeah, a lot of roster turnover. It's 54 years on a 105-man roster. That's a whirlwind offseason if you're thinking of winning high school, junior college, and then transfers. And of course, that's across the full football team. It's not just the offensive guys. But you're right. I think from retaining Deuce Robinson to the emergence of a Mekhi Danzy to the quarterback room is brand new, with Kevin Sperry being a returning guy and having some knowledge of this playbook and see what the scheme looks like moving forward. It's a new offensive line in many regards, a lot of new running backs. It's a very, very interesting offseason. Jerry, I think I've written this a couple of times. We felt this the last month too, that the Ashton Daniels discussion, the signing, really meant it's an open quarterback battle between Ashton and Kevin Sperry and maybe whoever else is able to make that push. Malachi Marshall will be a late arrival, May or June, so won't be around for spring ball. Jaden O'Neal had knee surgery. I don't want to speculate on timeline. Doesn't look good for the spring, but let's see how that progresses over the summer down the road. There are some options, but Jerry, bottom line, I think quarterback competition is a very, very good thing for those quarterbacks, for the development, for what this team and this offense needs right now. I feel like that was underscored with this Malzahn announcement today. Do you agree? You still feel this is very much wide open for these guys?
Yeah, I would think so. Very much so. And I think, Bob, one of the things we could sit on this call and speculate and burn a lot of time on speculation, but I think the player reaction over the next couple of weeks is going to tell us a lot, And I know that some of the players have a lot of belief in Tim Harris, and so it may be viewed very positive. That'll tell us all we need to know, I think, in the next few weeks.
And arguably the room on offense, the group on offense that improved the most, could argue at times offensive line. We could argue wide receiver very much. I think Tim Harris Jr. should receive a lot of praise for helping Mekhi Danzy develop and transition from running back to receiver. David Johnson started that back in Mekhi's redshirt year, but I think Tim Harris Jr. earns a lot of praise for bringing Danzy along, also for helping Deuce Robinson transition and develop, and then potentially being part of that retention formula to keep Deuce Robinson around. So that's an interesting storyline. I think is not just of trust, but of confidence in your coach. I think the guys around that building will have confidence in Tim Harris Jr. And he's a voice that he's not a loud voice. He's not an outspoken guy. We've been on some interviews with him. He's very pleasant, very level. But I think there's a command, there's a respect there that will resonate with the players, especially in a time of change, of just uncertainty. Hey, what's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? I think Tim Harris Jr. might be a calming voice, around not the receiver room, but what philosophically it's going to look like as far as your offensive scheme.
Well, he's been a head coach at the high school level. He's, his father was a legendary high school football coach. I think he gets football, and so now this is a great opportunity for him. Instead of being the guy beneath Malzahn, he's now the guy. And we'll get to see what Tim Harris is all about. And yeah, I mean, he's still going to be influenced by Mike, but um, it's interesting. We haven't had a dull moment in a while, have we?
We have not, and then that brings us to the big picture Mike Norvell question, right, Jerry? We just spent a year writing stories and discussing Mike Norvell is going to be a CEO.
Yeah.
Mike Norvell is going to see the big picture, and he can take more time to have one-on-one. I remember him talking about his role, and he said, extended amount of time to talk to Juice Cryer, the linebacker, in his office one night, just because Juice wanted to come and talk, and Mike Norvell had the time to talk. He wasn't an offensive coordinator at that point last year in the football season. These are going to be interesting times as Mike Norvell is again saying, I want to be that guy. I want to be the play caller. Jerry, I've speculated, does Chris Thompson become a guy that Mike Norvell has to delegate to because he trusts Chris, because Chris has been a head coach? Who does Mike Norvell trust within his circle of coaches? But also, how does Mike Norvell manage his time? Because he's no longer CEO Mike. He's helped by, I think, having John Garrett and Taylor Edwards there to help manage the roster, recruiting and such. So I think there are people he can delegate things to. It's going to challenge Mike Norvell, and I think in different ways now. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree. And, I think we've seen across college football what an important role the GM makes with all these players talking about their intent to enter the portal and contract negotiations and how complicated they actually are, with every state having different laws on NIL and revenue share. That burden on Norvell over the last 4 or 5 years, I think, was greater than any of us completely realized. And to be doing that and be a play caller, I think, was not wise or functional. Now that he's got, John Garrett, a guy that I think he trusts implicitly. I mean, he had worked with him in 22 and 23. I think he can let that go and, be a CEO and a play caller, but not have to deal with the hardest part of college football right now, which is roster management. So interesting. Now let me say this too. I wasn't 100% sold on Malzahn, and I'm not sure a lot of our fans were either, right? I mean, I thought his offense, statistically, we improved greatly, right? You really got to give him props for taking one of the worst offenses in the country. And, statistically, they were a top 10 running team at times and top 4. But there were things about the offense that a lot of us weren't sold on. And so I don't want to disparage Malzahn, but him leaving isn't like I don't think everybody's receiving it negatively. I think that there were some real concerns about Malzahn's offense, and so I'm a little ambivalent on that. I'm curious as to what the offense can become. And, Mike Norvell was considered an outstanding play caller as he came through the ranks. And he certainly, we were a good offense back in 22 and 23 and did sitting out a year. And we don't know how much he sat out. He may have been heavily involved with the game planning. But maybe taking that year off gave him another perspective on how to do that job better. And there's so many unknowns, but
I think to your point, Gus Malzahn's offense historically, I think, has not finished well in the red zone. That's been an issue at multiple schools. It was an issue for Florida State in 2025. Like Norvell, again, to your point, given a year of taking a step back, evaluating it, seeing, going back to his arsenal of what plays worked in the red zone, which ones didn't. You've got some continuity. Seems to me like a Deuce Robinson would be an ultimate type of red zone threat, not just a jump ball guy, but he's got that physicality and catch radius. Not that you're going to always go, but he is an option. You've got a pretty established group of running backs. You're bringing in some really versatile and valuable guys at the running back position. Trey Wisner, catch the ball in the backfield. I think that's very, very valuable, not just in getting to the red zone, but in scoring points. So this is an offensive transfer group and group of retained players. Again, Danzy, Robinson, etc. Don't just look at the transfers. Don't just grade, well, Florida State did this in the transfer portal. Look at the big picture of retention. Look at the big picture of developing players. I think the biggest question.
I'm excited about Boggs. I mean, he had a wonderful start to his career, and I was very encouraged when Florida State retained him. I think he's a bright light for the future.
He could be another guy in the red zone or just across the field. So I still think we come back to the quarterback question of who is the quarterback, who do they have the trust in leading the offense, sustaining drives, but also leading that group. We've heard consistently Kevin Sperry's a leader. We've heard good things about Ashton Daniels as a leader, guy who won 3 state titles, as you've reminded me a couple of times at the high school level. So I think it's an interesting quarterback discussion. I've often said, Jerry, we talk about this consistently. It's not just about the quarterback. It's about the talent around the quarterback. I think there's talent around the quarterback.
There is.
Wide receiver, running back, tight end. We'll see about the offensive line. It's not a bunch of power 4 guys, but there's a mix of guys with a ton of FBS experience. There's talent on the quarterback, regardless of who it is. So I think when you look at Mike Norvell, play caller, he's got some serious options at his disposal, guys with varying experience, but there's really not a shortage of men that he can go to. I think it still is building that chemistry in the spring, figuring out the right pieces. Who are your starting 3 receivers, for example? Who are your best running backs in various situations? Who's your best block running back? There are questions that you have time to, I think, unpack as a coach, but I do feel like this is a nice offensive roster that they've been able to put together. What do you think about just that component of the work that's been done over the offseason?
Yeah. Well, you wrote a nice piece on the roster on offense coming back, and I'm still toiling with the defense roster, but I'm very encouraged by it. And when you talk about the quarterback, so much of it is the defense and how many points are you allowing and what kind of field position is the defense giving you? And some of the things I've noticed there, I mean, retention of obviously the DeSers and guys like Kevin Lyons and Kevin Wynn. I mean, the front, they're bringing back about 9 guys. There 8 or 9 on the front that have significant experience. And now they've had a year with Tony White's, where I saw the biggest deficiency in years past. Of course, we all see it, weren't getting pressure on the quarterback. And I think a lot of that was partly because we had, in past long passing situations, you had the 2 DeSers and you had Amari Williams, who were 18, 19 years old. And they're going against 5th and 6th year seniors, graduate students who are been in a college weight room 4 or 5 years. So I think the same group we had last year with another year in the strength program and the knowledge in Tony White's system, I think our front will be better. But they went out there and got some guys. I mean, I think I counted there's 17 guys in that defensive front segment room, 17. And then they went and got a bunch of linebackers. We got 12 or 13 linebackers now. And you've got to get in my opinion, our linebackers over the last few years, 10 years, just aren't producing a lot of caused fumbles, fumble recoveries. We're not getting enough sacks, enough, pressure. And it's not just the front. Your linebackers have got to be engaged and involved in it. And I think they're bringing back 3 linebackers, but they went out and got 7 or 8 guys. A bunch of freshmen who, when you look at them, as I'm doing right now on film and looking at them statistically, they get a lot of pressure. There's guys called edges and there's guys called linebackers, but when you start looking at pressures and sacks, statistically they're there. And so I think this defense could catch, with a year of Tony White under their belt, we could be a better football team because our defense is better. And so that, complementary football, if the defenses are turning the ball over for you, giving you great field position, your offense is going to score more, going to get more opportunities. So, you are talking about on offense that there's quarterbacks only as good as the guys around him. I would extend that even to the defense. And we've seen that in the playoffs. There's some quarterbacks who are game managers and just have really good defenses behind them. We had that in 23. At the end of the year, we were so pissed off about not getting in the playoff because that defense was winning with or without Travis. And so that's I think, what's that?
Won an ACC title with that defense. Absolutely.
Exactly. Freshman quarterback beat Florida at Florida, beat Louisville in the ACC championship game. So and the other thing in college football today is how many teams have you seen trot out a freshman and have success? We see it more times than not lately. And I get it. The quarterback, if you don't have a quarterback, you're kidding yourself. But we're seeing teams win still with defense and a good game manager. I'm actually somewhat encouraged by Sperry. I think, and to your earlier point with Mike, that might be a really positive thing for Sperry.
I think it's a wide open competition. I think that's very, very good. Not just at quarterback, I should say. I think there's a lot of positions, offense, defense. Yes, there's guys who came back, and yes, you're paying guys, and by paying them, that often means they're starting. I think we all get that. That's the way college football is going. But I think there are a lot of jobs that are very much up for grabs. This is a talented freshman class that a lot of those freshmen are going to be angling for jobs in the 2 deep. If not a starting job, they're at least in that competition for the 2 deep battle. Let's just do a quick break, and then Jerry, we'll come back, give you our closing thoughts as we kind of wrap things up here Monday night, talking on Seminole Sidelines on the Osceola's YouTube channel.
Hey Seminole fans, Alumni Hall is your ultimate FSU shopping experience and has moved to a new location off Timberlane Road in Tallahassee. Shop FSU gear from Nike, Champion, New Era, Yeti, and more. Alumni Hall has Seminole gear for the entire family, plus accessories and gifts. Spend $150 and you'll earn $10 off your next purchase with their Hall Pass rewards. Stop by their new location on Timberlane Road near REI or shop anytime online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Seminole fans shop.
All right, I want to give you our final thoughts here. Again, Monday special edition, the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. We plan to do more of these. We'll be back on the Osceola's YouTube channel more often. Quick couple programming notes. Wednesday, we will have Florida State softball coach Lonnie Alameda on our combined Front Row Knowles Seminole Sidelines show. So look for that interview Wednesday. And we will be talking to Ashton Daniels as part of the media interviews with these newcomers. That will be slated for Wednesday, I believe in the 11 o'clock hour. So look to the Osceola.com. We'll have updates from Ashton Daniels and a couple of the other newcomers. I believe every Wednesday through February, we'll have those interviews coming up. So
those should be telling. Those should be telling.
That was one of the first things I thought of, Jerry, was, wow, this is an announcement on a Monday. And then Ashton Daniels, 48 hours later, is going to be, I won't say peppered with questions, but he will have, he will be asked quite a bit about not just coming to Florida State, but what was your discussion like with Gus Malzahn? What's the relationship with Austin Tucker and Mike Norvell? What do you think about the scheme? Is the playbook changing? There's a lot of meat on the bone to that Wednesday newcomer interview.
Was that interview scheduled prior to the announcement this morning?
Yes. So Sports Information announced Friday that there will be newcomer interviews throughout February, a bunch of them on Wednesdays. And usually that's after those tour duty, fourth quarter drill type of days. So we'll also kind of get thoughts on a lot of those early morning workouts from these guys too.
With a degree in science from Stanford, I think he'll give a good accounting of himself.
I would agree. All right, Jerry, what are your final thoughts here on what was a busy day? Stories on the Osceola.com. You can chat with us on the OsceolaBoard.com too if you're a subscriber. But Jerry, your closing thoughts here.
Intrigue. I mean, it's there's nothing dull about college football today. And I'm intrigued by it. And, you know, I mentioned sometimes we lose. It's frustrating because of the turmoil college sports is in, but it damn sure is intriguing. So, I mean, you learn something new every day. Huh?
It's good man drama, to steal a term from your wife.
Yeah, man drama. It totally is. Oh boy! All
right.
Well, listen, y'all.
We will see you.
I think just everybody just needs to take a breath and let's let this thing play out. Let's hear from the players through these newcomer interviews because it impacts them more than it impacts anybody. And I'll bet you in the coming week we're going to learn some things that we don't know tonight.
Yeah, I think we have our first impressions, and we've kind of given you those in print, so to speak. We've given you some of our thoughts tonight. We'll have more in the days ahead. I think Wednesday will be the next day that's very interesting as we hear from a lot of these players. Well, again, thanks for spending some time with us on Monday night. If you're checking us on the Osceola YouTube channel, subscribe to our videos, subscribe to our channel. We will have this podcast on Apple, Spotify, so you can check it out, listen to it as you're driving, working in the gym, or whatnot. But again, for Osceola publisher Jerry Kutz, I'm Bob Ferrante. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.